Welcome to the Love Deep Lab podcast, helping you integrate sex, sexiness, sacredness, and science in your life and your bedroom. And now, your host, Dr. Stormy.
Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Stormy. Thanks for joining us today on the Love Deep Lab podcast. So for all of you men out there, and for all of you out there who love men, this episode today is for you. We are going to talk today all about masculinity and being a powerful, conscious man in today's society. How confusing that can be, how powerful that can be, and even some surprising aspects of modern masculine. And we're going to be doing that today with an amazing guest, Brandon Archer, who I will introduce here in a moment. But I'm just really excited for all of you out there tuning in and joining, listening, watching today, what it means to be practicing modern masculinity. So welcome to today's episode, and welcome, Brandon, to today's episode.
Thanks for having me.
I'm just going to introduce you. Yeah, so happy to have you. Brandon's joining us here from British Columbia as well. But Brandon Archer grew up in a cult, is a father of 4, a heart attack survivor, men's group facilitator, and lifelong coach. Brandon's life has been one of learning, observing, and supporting others' growth through his own. In his quest to discover his deeper self, he discovered his buried masculinity while striving to have a healthy romantic relationship. And now he's on his life's mission to help other men discover what they have waiting inside of themselves so that they too can have great relationships. So Love Deep Lab, welcome to you, Brandon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really excited just to talk with you today and share about this really beautiful, powerful, as a woman, concept of modern masculinity.
Yeah, it's it's a topic that doesn't get talked about enough. And when people hear masculinity, I think they think it's a bad thing. I think they hear toxic in front of that without us even exploring it at all. So I'm happy that we get to talk about what healthy masculinity looks like.
Beautiful. So I'm just going to start with asking you, Brandon, how did you get to doing what you're doing and to having, your own words, your life's mission be to work with men on this opposite of toxic masculinity, this divine masculine, essential masculine, modern masculine, and just how you got here to do this?
Well, I mean, where does it start? It starts, I think, the heart attack. I'll start there. I mean, I was married for about 8 years, had kids, was divorced, had been in the dating pool, but my heart was never in it. And I didn't really realize that at the time. But when I had that heart attack, it was as you can imagine, pretty shocking thing. I was super fit, probably the fittest I'd been in my life, training on my bike. And after that, I'm like, man, I got to figure stuff out. Like, this isn't right. The doctor could not find a medical reason I had a heart attack. So I just asked him, can stress do this? He's like, yes, but we don't have a metric for that. I'm like, well, pretty sure that's what happened. So it made me pause. It made me just try to take stock of, like, why am I so stressed? Why do I feel this way? And 2 weeks after the heart attack, I'd met a woman, and I remember telling her, I'm like, I'm not ready to do this, like a relationship. But she said, why don't we just try? And I'm like, I couldn't really argue with that at the time. So I did. But with this new awareness, this new, being a little more awoke to myself, I'm like, man, I'm actually really terrible at this thing, these relationships. And eventually somebody suggested a book to me, The Way of the Superior Man. And that just blew open everything I thought I knew. And that led me to No More Mr. Nice Guy. Again, blew open a lot of old ideas. And in there, he talks about men's groups. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Makes so much sense. And I was lucky enough to find an online one that worked really well for me. And in that path, there were some powerful men in that group that really called me up to myself first with my masculine and understanding what that is and holding me accountable. And when I knew it was going to be my life's work is we did a live retreat on the Sunshine Coast here in British Columbia, and how powerful that was, and my kind of collective history of what I've done professionally. I just knew, I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to jump into this arena and just help. So ever since then, that's just been evolving, keep facilitating groups, working with men one-on-one. And it's evolved to where really understanding masculine and feminine polarity, how it plays out in relationship, how it plays out, the traits and energies in ourselves has become very important to me, because it's been my journey. So now that, I've lived some of it, I can help guide or help men in this way to understand these things from real life experience. And I just use all my past coaching experience. And, in men's groups, I get to hear so many more stories and so many more perspectives on men and their relationships. And we all, man, I'm telling you, I know for a fact we all want a healthy romantic relationship, but nobody really taught us how to do that. And it's not really our fault. It's not really our fault.
I love that. Totally. It's certainly not taught in our culture, most likely not taught in our family of origins, and I think also I just love and celebrate you that for like leading men's groups too, because I have the privilege of working with men in my professional life, and then also the men that I love in friendships and in partnerships. I've always really struggled with finding the men that are doing the work, that are really looking within and wanting to be in their greatness, really struggle with finding men's groups that, like you said, like call each other out, hold each other accountable, love each other fiercely and deeply in a real way, rather than in a surface level, let's just talk sports. And there's nothing wrong with sports, but like deeper than that. So I think that's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you.
So cool. And you mentioned David Data and The Way of the Superior Man. Life-changing book for me as well. It felt like a little insight into the male mind when I read The Way of the Superior Man. And if I had it my way, every young man becoming an adult would read that book.
I agree. Yes.
It's really, really amazing. Beautiful. So it really became your purpose. This work really has become your purpose.
Absolutely. There's not enough, there's not enough leaders and teachers in this space, because I see it every day, and I'm like, oh, John Weiland is a teacher that I really respect. And because I'm in that sphere every day, I'm like, oh, everybody knows this. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true at all. So there's no ceiling to what we can do to help men and women be better in relationship. There's no ceiling. I don't see it. We're not going to see it in our lifetime. That's for sure.
Amazing. I love that. And I think it's also you're touching on, which I very much believe resonate with personally and professionally, is that relationships, love partnerships, can be an incredible crucible for our growth.
The biggest, probably. It's where everything shows up.
Yeah, totally. Like all of my stuff, all of my shadows, all of my greatness, all shows up in love partnership and dynamic. And it's so funny for me, as a woman in partnership, I'll say, it'll come up for me and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I thought that thing has been long integrated and here she is again,
I can relate to that. I like that you mentioned it also amplifies the goodness, our greatness. I think that's actually really important to not forget. We may go down the path of talking about, how to integrate things, and how the things that need to be integrated are amplified by the romantic relationship because it shines a light on it. But I agree 100%. Your greatness also can be magnified.
Yeah. Thanks for focusing on that. True. I think it can be particularly, you also mentioned that we want good relationships. I really believe we all do. And what I've gotten to experience in working with my male clients, and then also my dear, dear male friends and brothers and things like that, is that men really want to be fabulous partners and fabulous lovers and, just fabulous men in this world. And it, like you said, how confusing and misguided it can be with like social messaging and cultural messaging.
Yeah, it's so confusing. It is so confusing. The toxic masculine is one. It's like, oh, I'm not allowed to be masculine. Yet I know for a fact, like all men have this burning, like, it's like this glowing ember inside them. That's the way I describe it. And men are like, yeah, that thing. And this fire wants to ignite. But with that fire comes some bigness. Their bigness is not something to be afraid of. But because we were not young, taught to, deal with anger, deal with these big emotions that men have just as much, if not more than women, that bigness scares us. That fire, that glowing embers, like, it scares us because we're not going to know what to do with it if it ignites. So that's the great thing about men's groups is you can like learn. You can have a container where it's safe to explore that. And then if you're a father, oh my God, then you get to take it home to your son if you have a son and slowly teach him that.
So beautiful. Totally. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I love the idea of that ember and kind of glowing there, and for our listeners and viewers who aren't familiar with it, a lot of what we're talking about too, and I just love to hear your kind of thought on that, Brandon, is that we have these, particularly in the tantric teachings, both neo-tantric and classic tantric, that we have these energies, these masculine and feminine energies within each of us. So me as a woman has the masculine and feminine energies, you, Brandon, as a man, doesn't matter what gender you are, we have these energies that we run. And we learn to, and today you are sharing with us about modern masculinity. So running and working with that masculine energy. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on like working with your male clients and leading these groups on helping men also learn to, identify, work with, transmute their feminine energies as well.
It's actually, I almost think it's more important to integrate the feminine energies as a man.
Oh, wow.
And let me like explain why. I liken one metaphor I use is like your masculine is like a suit of armor. And as a man, when you discover it, maybe you enter men's groups, you read a few books, you get a mentor, you get a coach, and you're like, oh my God, look at this power I have. And you put on this suit of armor and you feel indestructible. You feel amazing. I've been there. Like, I'm talking also from my experience, and you're like, I'm going to go get the world. Here's the thing. A suit of armor is heavy. So I liken integrating the feminine to your actual physical body that has to hold that armor. You have to work out. You have to make sure your body is solid to handle the masculinity. So that body is your feminine energies. You can't have one without the other.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I can really like feel and see that metaphor, that analogy.
Yeah, and what, COVID is partly what shone a light on this is, men around me, we all practice masculinity, the added stress of COVID, and some of us started collapsing, and I'm like, what's going on right now? Like these men seem really powerful, and I'm like, oh crap, it's because we haven't gone deep enough into our emotional and our feminine side to be able to handle it. So that suit of armor, we carried it until, we were asked to leave it on longer than we thought we were going to have to, and we started stumbling.
Wow. Yes, totally. Yes. Yeah. And I think there's such a cultural messaging that if you are in your feminine energies or the characteristic, the qualities of the feminine energy as a man, that is weakness, right? That's being a pussy, whatever, all the like slander, like all the slang that really demonizes, judges, and shames that part. And I can just say, as a woman, when I experience a man that I love as a friend, as a sibling, as a love partner in their feminine, or not even in, but learning to integrate their feminine, it is the sexiest, most powerful thing ever. It just is.
It is powerful. We're talking about being a human. The fact that we're male is actually kind of a sidebar in a little bit of a way. The fact that our gender is equated with the more masculine traits, it feels more natural. We want to go there. Absolutely, we do.
Right.
And because of that, we want a feminine partner. Mm-hmm. And here's the crazy thing. This to me, I say crazy because it sounds so simple, yet it's something we possibly ignore. How am I supposed to relate to the feminine as a masculine if I'm not in touch with my own feminine? Like, it doesn't really work. If I just come at you masculine, 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 I can't relate to you. I don't know what you need. But now I'm delving a little into relationship. But the deeper I go into my feminine, understand myself and my emotional needs, and those I learn to take care of myself, I can now show up in the relationship being able to handle or hold the heart of the feminine. I can't do that if I don't do the work myself. I can't.
Totally.
Trust me, I've tried. It doesn't work.
I think what is the quote? Like, we can only meet someone as deep as we're willing to go within ourselves, right? We can only meet an external person as deep as we're willing to go inside of our own landscape. And I love that. It's so beautiful. And when you and I were chatting before this podcast, one of your passions within your passion, within your purpose, is talking about emotional responsibility as men, emotional responsibility in men, for men. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I think that's such a potent topic these days in relationships.
And it's interesting because you already said it's so sexy when a man embraces his feminine. And that's actually what that's like kind of the path we're going down now, because where we are at in society and the way it's set up, boys are not. Let me back up. Tribal society fascinates me. I need to research it a bit more, but there's a very clear path from boy to man. There is a very clear need for his mother, but then at a certain stage, he is kind of more integrate or spends more time with the masculine, with the men in the tribe. And there's more than one reason for that. Some might be, it's like, oh, it's just so he can learn to be a hunter. Yes. And learn how to be a man. So in our modern society, it's the nuclear family is still the most common. Yes, powerful women are working, definitely. But a boy's journey through life is he needs his mother to learn about his emotions. He does. And in elementary school, many of the teachers are female. That's not a bad thing. But there is not a clear transition where a man starts to teach an adolescent or a pubescent boy how to handle his emotions. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And that is where we get stuck as men emotionally. We get stuck relating to the feminine more on a motherly basis, more as I don't know how to handle my own emotions. I don't even know what that means. I'm stuck at age 12.
Yeah.
And that is, male listeners might have a problem with that, but like, we got to get honest with ourselves. Like, did your dad ever teach you how to handle your emotions? Other than don't cry, don't show weakness? That's all bullshit. That's not where your power is. Your power is in embracing those parts of yourself. So, we have men, and it's me. Like, I'm in the process right now. I am no different of learning how to take care of that part of myself deeply. So in a relationship, what often happens, we show up as men. We're like, wow, woman of my dreams. Awesome. we are still, unfortunately, emotionally operating where we look to the feminine to hold our emotions versus learning how to hold them ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be very subtle at first, but many women are probably nodding right now going, oh my God, yes,
I'm nodding.
I don't want to be his mother. I'm like, I know you don't want to be his mother, but we have been society's put us in a position where like, I don't know how to be your partner then. Because my only experience with the feminine was they were more of a mothering and nurturing
absolutely.
place.
Wow, that's
so now
beautifully said.
Yeah, so now you're 30, you're 35 or what, it doesn't matter the age, and emotionally, subconsciously, you're looking to your partner to mother you. That's not going to work very well.
No. It's not going to feel good on the female receiving side of it. It's also not going to lead to incredible polarity and chemistry in the bedroom and sexual energy and all the things.
Yes, yes. So a man's work is to figure out what it looks like. What is he looking to his partner for that he's responsible to take care of himself emotionally?
That's so you're saying, as with emotional responsibility, as a man learns to hold and work with and integrate his full emotional spectrum, all the emotions, that he will look less to his partner to hold that mother energy for him. Beautiful.
And it's not that we wouldn't allow our female partner to nurture us. That's not what that means. It means it's a different nurturing. You know, I've experienced where the feminine just like, it calls me to a higher self continually.
Right.
But it's in a nurturing way. It's not in a like, you need to do this because she had done enough work. It's like, you need to look at this thing. And I'm like, damn it. You're right.
She's right. But I really love that you're pointing out that, because I believe, and you know, obviously I'm a woman, but also my own personal journey in the last really like 4 or 5 years has really for me been leaning back, falling back, surrendering fully into my feminine essence and my divine femininity. And I do think that part of one of the like superpowers of that, I have like Wonder Woman sitting behind me, but a Wonder Woman power of the feminine is that what you just said, Brandon, to the calling up, inviting into, calling out, but in a loving Kali-esque sort of way, our men.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it's important. And living, you know, different sides of this, it feels like nagging. It feels like mom telling me what to do if you haven't done your work.
Yeah.
And the second you start to do some, you don't need to have this completely figured out. But for me, it was like, I had to find some humility. Like, I had to dig deep and be like the most humble I've ever been in my life and realize she's right. And I think that can be turned back personally on a man too, is like, you need to trust the feminine in you, that it's right as well. You need to trust your feelings.
Yeah, right. And how powerful. I mean, I feel as a woman, I feel like I literally feel chills throughout my whole body as you're saying that, because I feel such compassion for the men that I love and get to have in my life. Because how fucking confusing. Like, how do you trust your feminine and trust your emotions when everything has taught you not to?
It takes some work. So I like putting it this way. It's simple. It's maybe not easy.
Yeah. I love that. Amazing. So every week on the Love Deep Lab podcast, we do share what I call sexy homework, because it's the best kind of homework if it's sexy. So Brandon, what would you suggest for our listeners and watchers? Like, how can they begin? How can the men listening begin to practice this, begin to be in emotional responsibility, begin to be and practice modern masculinity?
Yeah, I'm going to give you some really simple things that may not sound like they're related, but they are. One is I challenge the men listening to take a bath a week. Candles, the whole bit. What would you do for your partner if you wanted to soothe her and make her feel relaxed?
Love it.
Two other ones that are tied very strongly together in my practice is journaling and meditation. And these things are like the foundation to the work that you would need to do to start to integrate your masculine and feminine. If you don't, the journaling and the meditation, the journaling is like, what's going on inside of me today? And you ask yourself that question, you see what comes out on pen and paper. Might surprise you. And the meditation,
just stream of consciousness journaling, like you said, what is going on inside of me today, and you just sort of write it down.
Yeah, there's different ways. Stream of consciousness can be, I know for me it was a little tricky at the start, and there's tons of journaling prompts out there to get you going. And with my clients, I'll give them, it's like, okay, stick with this too for a week, because it might not, like, you might not get any answers the first 2 days, but day 3 something might start to come up. Because it's new. You're asking your mind to do new things. So, yeah. And then meditation just helps you kind of access those thoughts that might be hiding. It does a bunch of different things for your nervous system as well. But if you take a bath a week, start daily journaling and daily meditation, you're going to notice a change in your life within 2 weeks.
I love that. Okay, and because I'm tapping into my masculine now, I'm like, all right. How long do you recommend people journal for?
I think I've never been asked that. I would say give it at least 5 minutes, even if you're going to do stream of consciousness and you feel like nothing's coming out and you're like, I don't know what to write, and you sit there for a full 5 minutes, you're still actually journaling. Because the next day you're going to be like, oh, I thought of one thing to write, and then it might be like 2 sentences, but you need to allow that space. So here's the crazy thing, this is masculine structure. The timer is the masculine structure to allow the more emotional and feminine things to come out of you.
Amazing. Beautiful. And for meditation, not obviously, but for me, meditation has been one of my most potent life-changing practices. And I will never go without meditation again. But for those of our listeners who that might be new, or they might, when you hear it all the time, so do I. Like, I can't meditate. I'm terrible at meditating. We know that there is literally no such thing, but our ego and our small self tells us that. So what would you recommend for beginner meditators? Do they do guided meditation? Do they do silent meditation? What do you recommend?
Two things. I like to give people a choice sometimes. There's so many apps out there now with beginner programs. With guided, they're amazing. It can be 3-minute guided, like you're winning. You're already winning. Also, I don't know what, I believe strongly 3 big, deep breaths, very inhale, exhale consciously 3 times, you've just meditated. So if the other stuff feels daunting and you start there, and you start to feel the effect, you literally feel the effects immediately. Like,
amazing.
You literally feel the effects. Totally. You should want more. You should want more of that good feeling.
Right. It's like, thank you so much for pointing that out too. Like for me, my own personal journey, for years, I kept trying meditation. I'd try it on and lose it, try it on, lose it. And I had this same story that, I'm a terrible meditator, but I'm really good at breath work. And so for me, breath work was my doorway to meditation. And I totally agree with what you say, that it's the same, right? It's that pause, that stillness, that cultivate, and really self-love. Like it feels delicious and yummy and self-loving to gift myself those times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So cool. All right. So we're going to do speed round questions for you, Brandon. I always ask my guests, and feels like such a beautiful dose of intimacy. But the 3 pillars of the Love Deep Lab podcast are sex, science, and sacredness. And so I'm just going to ask you right now, in this shared time together for what's most alive for you, what feels like, when do you feel most connected to your sexiness, to your sexual energy for you right now, Brandon?
Amazing question. When I am grounded and my partner is in her feminine, I feel like a lion. Literally, I feel like a lion.
Oh, love it. So good. Totally. Like, right? You just get to like be in lion and she gets to be in lioness. That's amazing.
There may be some growling involved.
I hope so. That's awesome. So cool. Okay, so science. Obviously, you have a super bright mind. And so what part of science or the body or the mind like lights you up right now, gets you fired up to read and learn about?
Oh man, I'm digging into Joe Dispenza's work and the scientific fact that if your heart is full of love versus fear, you are emitting a 3 meter. Oh, I'm Canadian, so that's 9 feet. I think that's 9 feet electromagnetic field around you. Like, come on, that's amazing. Like that's amazing.
Mind blown. I know. So cool. I love his work. Amazing. It like boggles my mind. Amazing. Cool. And then the last pillar is sacredness. So what feels sacred for you right now, Brandon?
I'd have, man, you got me. My son is 16, and I think my relationship with him right now is the most sacred thing to me, as I try to model the things we're talking about and give him a different experience than I had.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally feel your amazing lion dad's heart on that one. So thanks for sharing that. Beautiful. And how can our listeners and watchers find you, follow you, work with you, all the things?
Website is the easiest way, and it's brandonarcher.com. And then there's social media links there. So that's the easiest way to find me.
And you do men's groups, you coach with men, you have all these different things.
Yeah, one-on-one. I mostly one-on-one. I do have a group I'll be booting up myself, but I also work with the Samurai Brotherhood and lead in that organization. Many ways. And if you're even curious, if I can't, this is heartfelt. If I am not the resource, please reach out. I've been there. It is hard to navigate looking for help as a man. So if I don't mesh with you, that's fine. Let me help you. So please take me up on that.
Super awesome. Sweet spot between humility and greatness. That was awesome. And we also mentioned a few other men that we both really admire and follow. So I will make sure I put all of those in the show notes. And thank you so much, Brandon, for sharing time today with us.
Thanks, Stormy.
Yeah. Thank you to our listeners and viewers for tuning in today and being brave and opening your hearts to love deep.